Married at First Sight tell-all. This tell-all was taped around March of 2023. It had everything. Laughing, crying, yelling, trash talking, storming off the set, happiness, little tea was spilled, and that was just Lindsey. I'm Tamara, and this is Tamara Lynette Tells. Let's hop right in. So this episode was hosted by Monique Kelly, a relationship expert who also has been filling in for Keisha on After Party. The cast members were Lindsey, who was married to Mock the Shock, Tristan, who was married to Mia, Krysten, who was married to Mitch, Jephte and Shawniece, the only married couple on the set, and Henry, who was married to Christina, and then Mindy, who was married to Zach. So Mindy talked about changing careers from being an ice skating instructor to becoming a data scientist, and she no longer lives in Washington, D.C. She moved to San Diego. Steve was a surprise guest who wasn't a surprise at all, since the majority of the preview showed Lindsey cussing him out. I was actually surprised that he wasn't there when the show started. So he and Mindy are dating now, which I already told you in a previous video. As the story goes, Mindy hit him up on LinkedIn under the disguise of wanting to connect due to his background in tech. But really, she seems to be going through the dossiers of all the past husbands and thought he was cute, so she hit him up. While Steve was talking about hanging out with pretty much everyone from the cast except for Lindsey and Noi and how he's grown so much since their breakup, Lindsey was making faces and squirming in her seat like Mark's bedbugs were biting her booty. And the host was like, I hear you over there making all kinds of sounds and facial expressions. What's up? And Lindsey started threatening Steve. Be careful. Be careful. You don't want me to start. I'm like, girl, that's why they invited you. Let's get it going. Spill that tea. We want to know. She told him, I know you need a paycheck and a place to live, so that's why you're here. Uh-oh. What? Spill it, Lindsey. Spill it. So Mindy hopped in to defend him and said that he was already in town visiting her, so she asked him to be on the show. Lindsey was like, whatever, he's a lying piece of trash. She said he lied on her and she knows what he did to her friend. She didn't say what he lied about. She said she didn't watch most of her season because there was so much deception and coaching of each other going on. She accused Steve of coaching Mark on how to make her look like a bully. Whoa, you lost me a little bit there, girl. You do have a hot temper, a sharp tongue, and you're kind of bullying Steve in this exact moment. Do you really think you needed help looking like a bully? She said when the cast would hang out without her, they would talk about her behind her back. Girl, the people on this episode were talking about you behind your back, even making facial expressions to your face. They were gulping their drinks down like, damn, I ain't saying nothing. You can't blow up like you do and expect people not to say anything behind your back, especially behind your back because they are not trying to get cussed out. Anyway, she accused Steve of having Noe pay his rent. Now, he denied it and said they both paid into their relationship. Honestly, I don't see Noe agreeing to pay his rent. She wanted to be able to quit her job and have him take complete care of her. She wasn't giving me sugar mama vibes at all. So Lindsey started to get emotional, and from there, it was like watching a novella. Hold on, I need a second. So after she took a breath, she said, what they did to me and what you did to me, Steve, was wrong. You sat there and tried to play a favorite so you could have your 15 minutes, and it was wrong. Steve was like, you think I'm against you? I haven't had any interaction with you. The mean things you've said on social media, I've tried to let it go. If you would stop coming for me, there would be no problem between us. Steve, I see the messages you write. Don't sit here and play the master communicator. You're a master manipulator. And if I ever see you again, it's too soon. He says things like, Mark is a good guy. Mark is not a good guy. I hope you get yourself together and stop living off of women and your parents. She was hot. But at the same time, I'm like, what exactly did Steve do to her that she didn't do to him? Sounds like they both said bad things about each other. Yeah, if he was broke, that sucks, but he wasn't Lindsey's husband, so that wasn't something he did to her. And he praised Mark for being a good guy. Wrong or right, that was his opinion, so who cares? I don't know if they edited out Lindsey's explanation as to why she was so mad at Steve, or if this was really just the gist of it all. Meanwhile, Mindy hopped in to defend Steve again by saying that she hasn't experienced that type of behavior from him. He offers to pay for everything. They split a lot of things. So based on her situation, what Lindsey is saying is not true. So Steve said Noi has never paid his rent, then started rambling on a little bit about how they didn't work out because they both had different expectations, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, his defense of himself and his finances wasn't very strong. I'm not convinced that he wasn't struggling financially when he was taping the show. So Lindsey couldn't take her own anger anymore, so she stormed off. The cast was kind of laughing, and Mindy was mouthing, "What the F? What the F?" And the rest of the folks were looking at Lindsey like she was crazy for having a tantrum, which made her look even worse because nobody on the stage appeared to be on her side. Mindy and Steve were over there taking selfies. Shawniece and Krysten straight up disappeared for a moment. I don't know, maybe they went to the ladies' room or to make a phone call. And regarding Lindsey storming off, Krysten said, from her perspective, hurt people. And that's all she has to say on the matter. Meanwhile, Monique was trying to talk Lindsey down from the ledge of her car's bumper. It was quite dramatic considering no one else seemed to care that she left. But it really felt like she was crying over something unrelated to Steve. I do believe that Lindsey's feelings were hurt, but maybe it was about something deeper. After all, everyone was carrying on and on about how many great friends they made during their season. However, I don't get the impression that Lindsey walked away feeling the same way. In any case, Lindsey was able to pull it back together and return to the set. Some of the tea that Lindsey spilled is that Chris isn't as nice a guy as she thought. He had too many red flags. She set him up with one of her friends, and he started isolating her from her friends and even told her to not talk to Lindsey. Now, because Alyssa cut up so bad during his season, we really didn't get a chance to see much of Chris's personality. Remember, he claimed he was a masshole, mass being short for Massachusetts, and his friends said that he can be overbearing and condescending, so there's that. Anyway, Lindsey commented that people say that Chris from season 12 is the worst MAFS husband of all time, but really Mark is. She said Mark lied about everything. Before the show even started, he had already lost his job, gotten evicted, and had bed bugs. He claimed that he made $60,000 a year, but when they did their taxes together, she said he only made $17,000 that year. Now, I suspected that he had bed bugs before he got married. I believe what Lindsey was saying is true because Mark's life was a hot mess during filming. They showed the moment when Lindsey was in the bathroom at the bowling alley making fun of Mark's job and calling him a loser. Monique asked Lindsey if she regretted that moment. She said the only thing she regretted was having the microphone on. So basically, it appeared as though Lindsey didn't take any responsibility for anything she said or did that contributed to the downfall of their relationship. It came across as her feeling like she was victimized by Steve, Mark, and the entire cast. Maybe they did talk about her behind her back, but you can't spew as much fire as she does and not expect folks to be whispering about her in the parking lot. Krysten said she's not dating anybody. She got a new job and is temporarily living in Virginia until she moves to New York. As I mentioned earlier, this show was taped in March. Recently, she officially moved to New York. Now, she said she wasn't going to start dating seriously until she moved to New York, so I guess she'll be firing up those dating apps and getting her swipe on now. So Monique asked her if any hubbies from previous seasons have hit her up. She said Ryan from season 13 and Mock the Shock have landed in her DMs flirting. She didn't respond to Mark at first, but he wouldn't stop blowing up her DMs. She finally had to tell him that no one from the MAFS community is her soulmate in order for him to back off. Okay, Mark, they're making you sound thirsty in these streets. Meanwhile, she and Mitch are still married. She filed for divorce, but they are still waiting through the 6-month period for the divorce to be final. And she said that she and Mitch had several fights that we didn't see on camera. That doesn't surprise me. Those two opposites never should have been paired to begin with. Tristan has been married for around 3 years. They have a 2-year-old daughter, and they've opened more educational centers. Tristan said he received a lot of hate after his season. Someone called him an evil Jay-Z. That's hilarious. Some of those social media keyboard warriors can be pretty dang funny in the comment section. Now, they addressed the comment he made during his matchmaking special. He said he doesn't prefer women who are darker than him. In marriage, you've got to be with somebody who melts your butter. Now, he was pissed that they combined 2 different comments, he said, and turned them into one. The melts the butter comment was made in reference to a different question Pastor Cal asked him. The melt the butter was part of a quote Tristan recited in response. As for wanting a woman who's not darker than him, he got really emotional and said he loves himself and his family and had a hard time with how people turned his comment into colorism. I agree with what the hostess said. There is definitely colorism within the Black community. However, when someone makes a statement like that, you have to get to the bottom of where it's coming from. Like, is it just a preference, or does he feel like darker people are inferior? Monique referred to the paper bag test, which was an old way that folks determined which Black folks received special privileges. If you were the same shade or lighter than a paper bag, you were allowed whatever privilege was in question. I think folks need to give them a break because they make these people say things out loud that many of us would never even say to ourselves, let alone a friend out loud. Back when I was in the dating scene, if y'all would have heard the reasons why I swiped left on guys, you would have been mad at me too. This guy appears to be looking for someone to put money on his books. This dude looks like he never met a toothbrush he liked. This man looks like he's growing potatoes in his skin. This dude just sent me a disco stick pic where it looks like a hurricane, an earthquake, and a volcano destroyed his messy ass room in the background. Child, I was the queen of mean when I was swiping left. But back to Tristan. I do believe that his color comment is a preference and not a put down. Most of his family members are darker than him, and he tutors kids that are darker than him too. I don't think he's hating. What do you think? Moving on, he said when Mia got arrested at the airport, at first, authorities thought he was trying to smuggle her out of the country. Apparently, most of the crew and producers left on earlier flights, so they were kind of on their own to sort that out. By the way, I created a video that talks about Mia's story. If you haven't heard her true story or what really happened, I highly suggest you check out this video after you're done with this one, of course. Then there was Henry. Aw, sweet, awkward Henry. He has a girlfriend. They met a couple years ago on a dating app. He said, before you ask, yes, we have consummated the relationship. Okay, letting it be known that he's taking care of business in the bedroom. Well, he didn't say all that, but at the very least, he's showing up for bed. Jephte and Shawniece have been married for 6 years now, and their daughter Laura is 4 years old. Shawniece said what we didn't know is that while she was pregnant, they had agreed that they were going to break up. What saved their marriage was doing the Married at First Sight Happily Ever After show. During that show, Dr. Jessica gave them tools on how to co-parent that actually helped their marriage. They give her credit for them still being together. Hearing this story made me get back on my soapbox on how they need to reinsert the experts back into this show again. Having that counseling readily available really makes a difference on this show. In any case, I'm glad they have found a way to be happy together. And can we just talk about Jephthe's facial expressions throughout this episode? This dude has no poker face. I bet he loses every time, but his facial expressions are hilarious. So they asked everybody who their favorite expert was. Tristan said Dr. Jessica. Mindy said Dr. Viviana. Krysten said Pastor Cal. Lindsey said Pastor Cal. Shawniece and Jephte obviously said Dr. Jessica since she saved their marriage. By the way, if you weren't watching when Dr. Jessica was on, she ended up getting booted off the show for hooking up with one of the cast members and eventually married him. So throughout this episode, it felt like people were kind of tiptoeing around Lindsey like she was a landmine, and she kind of was. About half of the show was the Lindsey show. Henry was pretty quiet but showed some sense of humor here and there. Krysten is still that girl next door, easy to get along with vibe. Shawniece and Jephte brought some chill but understanding vibes. And Mindy was bubbly and optimistic for the most part. I like playing catch up with previous cast members, so it was nice to see these folks. Of course, I wish they would have asked them deeper questions, but for a filler show, this wasn't that bad. I definitely prefer a tell-all over a show with random folks predicting the outcome of the current cast like they usually serve up. In the meantime, we have at least 2 more episodes of this endless season. Jimmy Carter was president when this season started. Let me stop. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you in my next video.